We are continuing the series we started last week, looking at the debate between evolution and religion. My name is Noah Lovo. I am the host of the channel, and in this channel we focus on the debate that has been going on for quite some time between evolution and religion. So today's focus, we're going to zoom in on religion. Last week we gave a general overview, so we'll be looking at 20 lectures. This is going to be the first of the 20 lecture series, and last week it was the general overview. So today we are focusing the attention to look at religion, because when you look at religion, for the most part, what are you talking about? What is religion? Because for most people, when you think of religion, you look at religion as Christianity, but there are other types of religion that we're going to consider as we proceed in this presentation. What is religion? Why are we preoccupied, especially on a Sunday, to talk about religion? Why are we talking about evolution? Most people say evolution, religion, these are the paradigms of life. These are the driving force of everything that we see today. We're talking about evolution and religion because it matters. Origins matter. So when you talk about life beginning in the sea, which means you discount God, and we talk about God creating the heavens and the earth in the likeness of Him, then you discount evolution. So is there an intersection set between the two? So this is what we're going to focus on in this series. But for today, like I said earlier, we'll be looking at religion. So when you talk about religion, what we have to understand for the most part is what is truth. So there are two types of truth. The first truth is what is called an objective truth. So objective truth, for instance, when you go to Zambia, where I happen to be coming from, as one, in Zambia, you ask any child, anybody in Zambia, they'll tell you 1 + 1 is 2. If you go to India, ask any Indian kid 1 + 1, they'll tell you it's 2. When you go to Latin America, South America, the Caribbean, you ask anyone 1 + 1, they will tell you the answer is 2. That type of truth is called objective truth because it's consistent regardless of wherever you are. Now, there's also what is called personal truth. Now, personal truth is something like, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I am Hindu. That is a personal truth because when you look at religion, religion talks about a personal conviction. It's a personal conviction, which means what appeals to one person may not appeal to the other person. So religion is a personal conviction, not the same as objective truth. And lastly, there is what is called a situational truth. Situational truth, I think, I don't really have the documentation for this, but it has been said that there was a time when Hitler would say, if you tell a lie long enough, loud enough, and often enough, the people believe it. Here's an example. If you say Hillary Clinton, lying Hillary Clinton, or if you say the election were stolen, if you repeat and say that countless times, the people believe that. If you say this guy is a Satanist, tell that time and time, loud and often enough, people believe that. So an objective truth is something that is consistent wherever you are. you could be in Brazil, you could be in India, you could be in China. If you ask a question and if the answer comes out the consistent and the same, that is what is called an objective truth. So an objective truth is the same. Now, a personal truth is situational. It sort of depends. It's more like where religion falls in, because there are different types of faith out there. If you ask a Hindu, they'll tell you what they advocate to is the truth. And if you talk to a Muslim, they'll tell you what they advocate is the truth. If you talk to a Christian, they'll tell you what they advocate is the truth. So you see, truth in this sense, it varies. It's a personal conviction. So it's not the same as an objective truth. And then of course the situational truth is depending on the situation. For instance, in politics, most people, they'll attribute the other candidate to say he's a liar, she's a liar, or for instance, they'll stigmatize or they'll attach a particular situation or particular weight to someone, like lying Hillary, lying Ted. So Trump, when he was running the 2016 election, you said lying Ted Cruz, lying Hillary Clinton. So when you say that often, loud, people believe that. So that is called a situational truth because it depends on the situation that you are in, whereas an objective truth is the same. So when you look at religion, religion is defined as a system that helps to understand the origin of everything. So when you look at religion, is a belief system. So what is a belief system? A belief system is something that falls in the realm of personal truth. Because when you say it's personal, which means it may apply to you, but it doesn't apply to the other person. This is why there are different types of religious groups, teachings out there. Each one claims to be the one and truthful and correct one. If you talk to a Muslim, they will tell you about Muhammad and the Quran. If you talk to a Christian, they will tell you about Jesus and the Bible. If you talk to Hindu, they will tell you about the Veda and the Bhagavad Gita, and they will talk about all those things. So the truth in this case, it varies. So religion, for the most part, is a tool that is used by people to justify what they wish to put out there. So for instance, last week we talked about, let me put up this little slide here. So religion is a practice which has for its objective in incomprehensive things, because when things, if you can easily comprehend what religion talks about, then there's really nothing to strive for. Because, for instance, imagine you understand God fully. So the infinity part of it becomes an issue which you feel like, hey, I've learned everything that I need to learn about God, so therefore there's nothing more to it. So therefore, religion is a practice which has for its objective in comprehensive things. Unlike everything else, it occupies itself with things unseen, because you have to believe. That's why you have to believe, because if you see something, you don't need to believe. If you can see something, you don't need to believe that, because you move from believing to knowing. Because if you can say you know something, which means you can prove it. Now, if you cannot see something, you believe it's out there. For instance, you believe when I put on this slide that I am still here, though you cannot see me, you can hear my voice, but you cannot see me. Therefore, you believe that Noah is still in the background. For instance, if I do this, now you can see me that I'm up here. If I do this, you believe that I'm still there. So religion is a system that presents itself with the unseen. In this realm, light is darkness. Evidence becomes doubtful or false. The impossible becomes credible. Reason is an unfaithful guide. And common sense is considered to be delirious. Because in this case, when you look at religion, you are looking at a personal truth. Was a time before the arrival of the Europeans that Africans believed in what is called the African spiritual systems. So African spiritual system differs from religion. What we have now as Christianity, as Islam, as Hindu, those are religions. But the African way of worship before the arrival of the Europeans was called the African system. So under those African system, Africans practiced a spiritual system. So in other words, you can say religion is a formalized steps that one has to follow to become spiritual. So by nature, African people are a spiritual people. The reason why African people lost what they had was that the Africans were very accommodative or very hospitable to the Europeans. So when the Europeans came to the African people, the Africans were worshiping their creator using different means. But the religion that we see now on the African continent, for the most part, is Eurocentric, which means it comes from Europe. So let's dive in a little bit and look at the types of religions that are out there. So let's start with Judaism. So for an average person, for the most part, when you look at religion, most people think Christianity is the only religion which is out there. But the fact is, there are other types of religions that are out there, which most people may not really have heard about. So dive in a little briefly and looking at the other types of religion, starting with Judaism. Yeah, so what do we know about Judaism? We know a lot about Christianity, but do we know enough about Judaism? So Judaism is from Jewish faith. The Jewish people believe in differently from what Christianity believes in. So for instance, the Hebrew, Jewish faith is of Hebrew origins. So Hebrew origin, what does it mean? There are people who are Jewish and they are scattered around the world. Most of them, they are found in a place called Israel, present-day Egypt, present-day Israel. So Jewish people believe in the 10 Commandments, and the Jewish people believe in the prophets. So the prophets are central to Jewish faith, and under the Jewish faith, there are different types of belief systems. But one thing that I wanted to point out for the average person out there is that the Jewish people do not consider Jesus to be the center of their faith. Now, when you look at the Jewish people. For the most part, it was a religion driven by the prophets. Prophet Moses, Elijah, and Jeremiah, just to name a few. Jesus Christ is also considered in the Jewish faith as one of the prophets. Now, when you look at Christianity, Christianity puts the man Jesus at the center of the religion. So Christianity puts Jesus at the center of religion. There's what is called the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So now when you go back to the African spiritual system, instead of the Father, the African system has the Father, the Mother, and the child. Now the Christian teaching, or which is what is called Eurocentric teaching, has the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So under Christianity, you look at there's a Roman Catholicism, and then there's a Protestant. There were 95 theses which some people in the past had presented to the church to protest. So this is how come you have what is called the Protestant coming from a protest. So if that was a sect from the Catholic Church, but due to limitation of time, we are not going to dive into that. So, because Christianity is something that I think most people are familiar with. So, the other faith that I wanted just to touch on is Islam. So, Islam, the center of Islam is Muhammad. Just like in the Christian Church, the center of Christianity is Jesus Christ. Now, the center of the Jewish religion is the Ten Commandments, or the rules, or the prophets. And there are various rituals. There is Orthodox, Judaism, modern, and things like that. So anyway, due to the limitation of time, we're not going to get into that. But Muhammad is a center of Islam. And then Islam believes in the 5 pillars. So the 5 pillars that Muhammad is at the center of it, and then there's the 5 arms, giving to, the 5 pillars, giving to the needy. And what is striking, or that I saw was different from the Christian faith, is that the Christian faith allocates a 10% as alms to the needy or the poor. But for the Islamic faith, the minimum is 2.5%. So among the 5 pillars is that the ritualistic worship of 5 times a day. And then there's what is called a Muslim is required to make the pilgrimage to Mecca. And then also fasting. There's a component of fasting. So those are the 5 pillars when you look at Islam. And when you look at Hinduism, Hinduism is a religion that has no founder. Because when you look at the Islamic faith, Muhammad is attributed to be the founder of the faith. And when you look at Judaism, is the prophets, Abraham. And when you look at Christianity, there are various writings by Paul. Paul is one of the heroes of the faith. So when you look at Hinduism, it doesn't have that. Hinduism believes in, for instance, the sacred books for the Hindu scripture is the Vedas, and they have the Bhagavad Gita, and then they believe in the existence of many gods. So one of the things that I like about the Hindu religion is that it puts a lot of emphasis and respect on animals. Especially there are 2 animals in the Hindu faith that are sacred, cattle and peacocks. So those animals are rarely consumed, or I think they may not even allow for those things to be slaughtered. So when you look at, for some of us on the African continent or in the Black community, we can't do with our chicken. So our chicken is, I mean, we love our steak. But for the Islamic faith, the Hindu faith, that those two animals, a peacock and a cow, those are sacred. So of course, under the Hindu faith, there is what is called Brahman. Brahman is both personal and impersonal. And one of the uniqueness about the Hindu religion is that it believes in karma and reincarnation. Karma, you get what you deserve. One of these days, what you give in is going to manifest in some form. So most of us have used the word karma. Karma will get you. So that comes from the Hindu faith. And then reincarnation, when you die, as a Christian, you believe that when you die, you either go and spend your time with God or you spend your time in hell. The Jewish faith does not subscribe to hell or heaven. The Jewish faith subscribe to, most people may not really know that, but I think there are differences between Christianity, Catholicism, and the Jewish faith. For instance, Jesus Christ is at the center of Christianity, but for the Jewish faith, Jesus is not the Messiah. He is just one of the prophets. Similarly, when you look at Islam, Jesus is a prophet. Islam acknowledges that Jesus is a prophet, but Muhammad is more important than Jesus in the Islamic faith. So the other religion which is very huge is Buddhism. Buddhism started out in India, made its way to the Far East, China, and Japan. But it started out from a prince who grew up in luxury and riches, and then he saw the poor people who were suffering. And it sort of impressed upon his personality that he had everything and then the other people were suffering. So he set out and founded this religion, which is called Buddhism, which is centered on enlightenment. Unlike Christianity or Islam is centered on Muhammad and Jesus, but Buddhism is centered on what is called awakening or enlightenment. So there is what is called cosmic consciousness, where people like Jesus Christ who were able to perform miracles are people who are considered to have reached enlightenment or cosmic consciousness, where when it strikes you, you have abilities that the average person does not have. So for instance, in a simple scale, when you look at in India, for the most part, India has what are called gurus. These are people who, I think one of the gurus that I like is Sadhguru. These are people who have reached, I think in terms of psychological terms, there is what is called Maslow hierarchy of learning. So at the bottom is the physical needs, the need for housing, food, and things like that. But at the top of it is actualization, reaching your goal in life. So for instance, when you look at Martin Luther King, these are people who are considered in the psychological terms that they lived up to their purpose in life. So going back to Buddhism, which is centered on awakening yourself to be in touch with yourself so that you are not focusing at looking at an external person. For instance, other faiths like Christianity and Islam focuses on looking at either Muhammad or Jesus Christ. But in Buddhism, it's focused on reaching an awareness or getting in touch with nature and everything else, so that at least you and your universe are one enlightenment. So those are the key points, like nirvana, reaching nirvana. You are liberated from life and death. So in the interest of time, we are not going to go into so much of the other religion, but I wanted to make a quick comment on Confucius. Confucius is considered as a pragmatic philosophical approach, or a school of thought. And then Taoism is both considered to be a religious, it's a religion, and both a philosophical approach. And Shinto was the original Japanese religion. So when we talk about religion, for the most part, there are different types of religion. Now, to an average person, especially because the focus of this presentation and these lectures are centered on African people, because Hinduism has a Hindu looking like person at the center of it all. When you look at Shinto, it's for the Japanese. Buddhism or the Buddha look like his people. Muhammad, which is an Arabic or Islamic religion for the most part in its origin, because it says Muhammad was born in Mecca. The pilgrimage, I think one of the 5 pillars says you have to, a good Muslim, if you are able to, you make your way to Mecca. Now, for Christianity, which is a Eurocentric religion, advocates, and it puts the image of Jesus Christ. I think we all grew up looking at the image of Jesus Christ, which is depicted to be a white person. Now, what you may have to ask yourself is, what is a white image doing on a religion which is 100% accepted by Black people? So a white person looks at Christianity and doesn't see any conflict there. But a Black person, when you look at religion, which is Christianity, and in its origin, it's Eurocentric. Africans had their own way of worshiping before the arrival of the Europeans. So voodoo, what is voodoo? Voodoo is one of the spiritual systems that the Africans practiced before the arrival of the Europeans. But most of us, when we hear the word voodoo, we have been stigmatized because we've watched so many movies where voodoo is associated with witchcraft. I think we have all seen those voodoo dolls. I think there are people who sell those things out there called voodoo dolls. See, when you're watching a movie, for the most part, it's impressing upon your mind certain characteristics and traits that you may not consciously see. So this is why you get your fear of voodoo, which is 100% African way of worship, because you've seen movies which depict voodoo in bad light. Because the Europeans, when they came in, obviously they had the agenda of dethroning the African values, the African way of worship. So this is why most of us, because when we were children, we have been taught about Christianity, we have been told about Islam, we have been told about Buddhism, we have been told about the Judaism. But nobody has told us about African spiritual system, because we have been told those are wrong. And we don't get to question why. Who is saying that? Usually when somebody tells you something, there's usually a motive why they're saying what they're saying. Have you ever asked yourself, or have you ever done any research in voodoo? Chances are you have not. You have taken at face value what has been presented to you by the other people. And you have trashed your African spiritual systems, and you have adopted a foreign spiritual system, which we so proudly accept and adore, and we trash our own. As a Black person, as an African person, the Europeans came to Africa and brought with them Christianity. So the question becomes, what is religion? Religion, like we have shared earlier, it's a system that is designed to impose certain values on you as a person. So when you look at this, you run away from your own facts, you run away from your own history. When we look at us as an African people, this is why we find a very hard time working with our own things, is because we have accepted that which has been imposed upon us as a people. Talk about religion. I have not said anything about God here or the existence of a superhuman being or super entity out there. I'm talking about religion. Christianity is a religion which has formalized steps, and those steps were created by a group of people. And the group of people who are behind all these religions, especially the Christian faith, are these people. So when I talk about Christianity, I am not in any way attacking God, or I'm not in any way attacking religion. I am simply presenting from a historical perspective the origins of these things. So these councils, 20 of them from 325 AD, these are the people who have come up with the doctrines that you believe. You have the Seventh-day Adventist Church, you have the Jehovah's Witnesses, you have the Dutch Reformed Church, you have all kinds of churches out there. They spring from the same councils, the 20 councils that the Catholic Church put up. So you have to understand that it's important for us as a people to understand the origin of these things, so that at least we know where we are going and what we need to do.